Welcome to Wimmer's Wilderness. I'm George Wimmer. We're working to bring greater awareness to our local communities and how important they are. We as individuals can have a significant impact on the quality of our communities. I've always wanted to create a way to help bring a little more light on important issues that affect us at the local level. We created a podcast called Wimmer's Wilderness to give a voice to this idea. Wimmer's Wilderness is an informed look at politics, community, government, environment, and education from a local perspective. We have 25 episodes to date with a lot more on the way. We've interviewed great officials like Mayor Johnson of Key West, Mayor Fisher of Clinton, Mississippi, and Mayor Littman of Mesquite, Nevada. We've also interviewed great groups like the National Coalition of Counties, the Colorado Municipal League, and a whole bunch more. We've got podcasts that cover things like climate change, politics, education, and kind of the week-to-week issues that kind of evolve over a year and how that really impacts us on a local level. You can find our free podcast on Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, Google Music, Luminary, and on our website, wimmerswilderness.org. And really anywhere you want to listen to a podcast or anywhere you are listening to a podcast, Wimmer's Wilderness will be there. You know, our regions, states, and countries are simply a collection of local communities working together. If we're able to make a positive change in our local level, then that positive change will be reflected at the regional, state, and national level as well. So what about me? Why would you want to take time to listen to me and what I have to say about local issues? So I'm going to give you a little bit of background on myself and then kind of talk about what I did in local government and a little bit of my professional life too, just so you understand where my perspective is coming from. So I grew up on a 40-acre hobby farm. I'm the youngest of 8 kids. I had 6 older brothers and 1 older sister, and we were really what you'd like to call financially challenged. My dad was a Korean War vet. He drove truck, worked construction. But shortly after I was born, my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so I never really had any, memories of her other than being in a wheelchair. And at the time when my memories still were created from her, she was living in the nursing home as well. And so those are kind of my memories. So what I know of her and the way she was before she had MS are stories from relatives, and mostly from my brothers and my sister. So as we were going along, when I turned 6, my dad had a severe stroke. So full-time employment for him was pretty much out of the question. We did get by with with supplemental security income. It's a form of Social Security. It's SSI is the abbreviation for it, and probably how most people know that. But that was a safety net that was really critical, important to us. It wasn't a lot of dollars, but it was really the difference between us being homeless and not having food to being able to scrape by growing most of our food and raising most of our food on the farm, but gave us that little bit of extra financial help. And then our local church, I'm a small town country Catholic boy, and our local Catholic church was just amazing. Most of my bedding, a lot of my clothes, a lot of that stuff was donated to us from them. But having grown up in this situation, I understand the importance of having that safety net. My dad was a war veteran. He worked his whole life. And circumstances for his health and then also my mom's health put us in a place where we needed to get that little bit of extra help so that we could get by. So having that kind of understanding, I think, is really important when we have a lot of discussions today about what kind of social safety net there should be, and everything from healthcare to education to a lot of these things that can help lift people up. These were things I lived pretty much each and every day of my life. So as we're going along, by the time I reached the age of 15, my dad was no longer able to care for me. And my sister took me in. Her and her family, just amazing. She saved my life in many ways. And what happened when I was just turned 16, my mom had just passed away from the ravages of multiple sclerosis. And I was diagnosed. I had migraine headaches pretty much my whole life. And my sister took me in, got me evaluated, and they said, well, we kind of see something, but let's just wait and see if it gets any worse. And she said, no way, you've got to figure out what the heck is going on, what's causing all these problems. And so on a Friday, they did, I believe it was called an angiogram, went up, kind of looked through the vessels in my brain and found out that I had AVM, which could have killed me by the time I was 20, 21. And so they found that on Friday. On Monday, I was in for surgery, brain surgery. Out of that, I had a stroke during the surgery. I was paralyzed, completely paralyzed on my right side. And so after months of physical and occupational therapy, I was able to recover. And honestly, with a lot of positive attitude, and it wasn't always positive. I mean, sitting there late at night, not being able to move is really, really disheartening. But having gone through that, that's given me a perspective of, one, making sure that you're an advocate for yourself, not just in medical care, which is incredibly important, but being an advocate for yourself and for others in every facet of life is really important. And I believe, even with this, background, which wasn't the funnest at times, I've been incredibly blessed, because if it wasn't for my sister, I most likely wouldn't even be alive. Okay, I wouldn't have had two beautiful children. I wouldn't have gotten married. Wouldn't have any of these, great, wonderful things that happened in my life. None of those things would have happened. So, my sister, in my eyes, can do no wrong. But she not only saved my life in that literal sense. I was not the most disciplined teenage boy, but she brought discipline, hard work. I mean, if I was a minute late getting home, I would be grounded. So she brought that discipline and that, understanding that you have to have goals, you have to set priorities, you have to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. She transformed my life completely. And that was really, really significant to me. But, having these experiences, it made me understand and made me aware that you can overcome most everything. And that if you're lucky enough to wake up every morning, you need to try to find ways to help serve the community. So as I went through college and some early work experiences, I then became director of operations for Precision Incorporated. I was there for 7 years. It's a national electronics manufacturer. And I left there in 2002 to become a stay-at-home dad, which was the best experience. I mean, it was just fundamentally amazing. A lot of hard work. I had never even changed a diaper till our first child was born. But there's just something about that, being able to do that. And we were in a situation where we could afford to do that. And absolutely not everybody is. A lot of people aren't, for sure. But it really was something that was beneficial, I think, for me to understand, getting a first, bird's eye view into early childhood development, education, all these different areas that really become a cornerstone of a community. So that was a tremendous, and still is a tremendous thing. I'm still a stay-at-home dad. I do podcasting, I do these things, and obviously we'll talk here in a minute about my other public service. But my kids are still the number one most important thing in my life. So in 2003, we had moved to the city of Isanti. In 2003, I was elected as president of the Isanti JCs, the first of 2 terms I served in that role. Then got involved with the Park and Rec Board and a bike walk trail committee between the cities of Isanti and Cambridge, and eventually becoming the co-chair of that committee. And we built a trail between our 2 communities, which is used today, heavily used today, just a fantastic project. But working with those people, those wonderful, great volunteers to make that project happen and to learn so much about that. And they had been working on this for, probably, I think, good 10, 15 years before I got involved with it. And then the last couple of years we were able to bring it home and get the project done. That was just a phenomenal experience for me, and really continue to help fuel my desire to want to serve. So during that process, I ended up running for city council in 2004, got a council seat, and then ran for mayor in 2006 because I didn't like the direction of the city was going. So I worked through all of that. We had a lot of issues in the city at the time. There was high crime, taxes were skyrocketing, businesses were not locating. There was a fast residential development going on with very low building fees, and the city took on a tremendous amount of debt. So it kind of gave me that perspective of how not to set something up, and taking some of my background in business and finance that I have and really applying that. So we took that city with the high taxes, high crime rate, bad credit and really turn that around. So I just want to, this is again, I feel a little bit like this is a job interview kind of video, but I just want to give some background on myself. So when I'm talking about issues, people understand what my experience is, so that it gives a little bit more credibility of what we're trying to do. So we did things like per capita income increased by 77% during my term as mayor, household income by 54%, home values were nearly 40,000 more than our neighboring city at the end of it. And this is the city of Iceni, which was the poorest. Okay, it had the lowest household income, had the lowest home values. It was considered kind of the ugly stepchild of the neighborhood. Okay, to give it that a little bit more context, we created a long-term financial plan because at heart I'm a planner, and finance is my background. We cut net debt from 9.1 million to 2.9 million. We improved our city credit rating from that BAA, which is basically one step away from kind of that junk bond rating, to a AA plus, which for a city our size was pretty phenomenal. And then again, that saved the city so much in interest payments. We had 16% less spending than our neighboring cities. And some of my, I guess, most proud accomplishments, and it's clearly not just because of me, but I think the best thing that I learned and that I've done in my professional career and in my public service career is you create an amazing team. You get people who are smarter than you are at everything. And you really try to help foster a great environment. And our economic development team, we were able to increase our city businesses by 48%. Just the total number of businesses, we increased almost 50% in my terms as mayor. And that allowed us to double the percent of private jobs in our city. So we're a smaller community of about 6,000 people. There were about 1,000 jobs within our community. We doubled that to over 2,000 jobs. So that was something that was done during my time as mayor. And again, we were able to create a great economic development team. And over the years, people come and go. We won economic development awards, and we won 2 state awards for economic development in the business recruitment category. And I had completely different economic development teams doing that. But our commitment to excellence and really trying to diversify our tax base is kind of what I think guided us through all of that as well. During this period of time, we invested in economic development, in safety. We brought on more police officers to get that crime rate down. We got Iceni to be the 6th safest. So we were had one of the highest crime rates in the state, to be in the 6th safest city out of, I think it was 850 plus cities in Minnesota over my time as mayor. But we also cut sewer fees, base fees by 50%, water base fees by 25%, for new homes, new businesses, for every hookup they connected to our city services. We cut that by $2,500 my last couple of years, and we had cut taxes quite a bit throughout my time as mayor. But the last 2 years, we cut it by 7%, and then my last year, we cut it by 21% property tax rate. So we were able to do a lot of these great things. We increased our general fund budget. Our general fund balance, not our budget, but our balance, so that we had a lot of cash on hand, improving that credit rating, cutting taxes, cutting fees, and growing the community. It was just a tremendous thing to be able to do with a great team of people. We also brought in a lot more transparency. We got all of our audio recordings up online, and then we started putting our meetings, the videos of that online as well, making everything, very transparent for the public, because you need to have that trust between yourself and your community to really make some significant changes happen. So, some of the things, and again, I'll just get through this really quickly, but, we won awards for safe drinking water, stormwater control. I won Conservationist of the Year my last term as mayor in 2018 for a lot of the great projects we had done over the years of my terms in office, of really improving water quality, protecting a lot of our natural resources, which was incredibly important to me as well. We did a lot of youth programming. We increased our park system by 67%, getting land from developers and then also from the DNR, and managing it better than our state could. And so they transfer that land over to us as a city. We started street dances, farmers market, a lot of these great things that a lot of communities have, but the city of Iceni didn't have. We were also designated a fit city, and then a green step city, which again was bringing in a lot of good environmental practices into our community. And so kind of, during this period of time when we moved into the community and some of these things I've been doing since I was 17, 18 years old. I've been a religious education teacher since I was 17, but within the community, as I said, I was a member of the JCs, health council member, worked with religious education in a number of differing churches as well. I was a volunteer coach for Odyssey of the Mind team, which we took first place at state. 'Cause I think it's really important to have that kind of bond with our schools and working within them when you're in community leadership, because schools, the way your school system goes oftentimes is the way your community overall goes. Having a great school system is probably your number one best economic development tool you can have. As I said before, I co-chaired the bike walk trail, was with our active living group, just a lot of things. And one of one of the funnest things, and you'll see a picture of it here, is from 2004 to 2014, I was a fundraiser and sponsor and jumper in our Arctic plunge. So people who aren't used to winter, this is where we cut out a big hole in the ice. You jump in. Some of these plunges are things, they walk in, walk out. This is where you're jumping in. It was 8 to 10 feet of water. You jump in, you got to swim over to the ladder and pull yourself out. So this was a little more hardcore than some others, but we raised a tremendous amount of money for local fire departments and on safety and rescue and those types of things as well. So, and then a lot of extensive experience, city council member for 2 years, mayor for 12 years, president of our economic development authority, chair of our planning commission, chair of our park and rec board, was the co-chair of the group that established our county economic development. So there's a whole bunch of things. If there's more in-depth stuff, if this hasn't bored you enough yet, you can just go to wimmerswilderness.org, and there's a whole list of all kinds of stuff that we've done. So, but I wanted to really get this out there. So as I start talking about different issues from that local perspective, you'll understand that, I have that government experience, but I also have a lot of that personal experience about, growing up in a local community poor, which is a group of people that oftentimes kind of gets forgotten when you're doing the rah, hey, how great is our community? We can't forget that aspect of it, nor can we forget how national and state policies affect local communities. So we're going to be talking about a lot of these things. And if you want to get kind of a good flavor of what we do, head over to wimmerswilderness.org or go to any of these podcast hosting sites and, download and listen to all 25 of my podcasts. But even if you just look at the titles and the descriptions of what's going on in those podcasts, and I'll put some links in here too, but take a look at those issues that we discuss, because it's everything from flooding in Nebraska, damages to our military bases because of climate change and some of the things that need to be done there. Some great groups that go out and help people in times of crisis. The politics of states like Florida or Illinois, local control issues, how education and the environment kind of tie together with all of these in local communities. So there's just a whole plethora of different topics that we have discussed and we will be discussing in these episodes too. So I want to thank you for listening. But I wanted to give you that information. I'm also going to put my email and other contact information, my social media accounts, get those in here as well for you to contact and follow me on those, because you can follow Wimmer's Wilderness on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Pinterest, all over the place. So we're launching this. Hopefully this will be successful.